The Galactic Council had existed for over 12,000 years. Species from across the stars lived under its guidance, each assigned their proper place according to their development and capabilities. The Vexari had long sat at the head of this hierarchy, their sleek bodies and crystalline technology, the pinnacle of evolution. Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the EDS Horizon, Earth's most advanced spacecraft, his dark eyes fixed on the main view screen where an alien vessel approached Earth orbit. The ship moved with impossible grace, its hull shimmering like quicksilver in the sunlight. "It's beautiful," whispered Commander Joe, who stood beside him. Kim nodded once. Beautiful and dangerous. He had spent 20 years in Earth's defense forces. He knew predators often evolved to be attractive to their prey. Lieutenant Park monitored her communications console, her fingers steady despite the tension crackling through the bridge. "Captain, they're hailing us." On screen, Kim ordered, straightening his uniform jacket. The image that appeared made several bridge officers gasp. The alien had a sleek, almost humanoid form, but with silvery skin that reflected light like polished metal. Its head featured 6 perfectly symmetrical eyes arranged in a hexagon pattern. The mouth was a complex arrangement of moving parts more like mandibles than lips. "I am Ambassador Krell of the Vexari Alliance," the creature said, its voice unexpectedly melodic. "Your primitive light-speed experiments have attracted our attention. We detected your first faster-than-light test 3 months ago." Kim maintained a neutral expression. 3 months ago, the Horizon had conducted a classified FTL test in the outer solar system. They had believed the test undetectable beyond a few light minutes. Yet these aliens had somehow observed it from interstellar distances. "Welcome to Earth space," Kim replied with practiced calm. "I am Captain Kim of the United Earth Defense Force. We are honored by your visit." The alien's mouthparts shifted in what might have been amusement. "How charming. Your species has achieved rudimentary space travel in such a short evolutionary period. Quite impressive for mammals." Kim felt his jaw tighten, but maintained his diplomatic smile. "We've made significant progress in the last century." "Indeed. The Council will assign you Category 7 status, quite generous for newcomers. This will grant you limited trading rights and restricted movement within 3 light years of your home system." "Category 7, Kim asked, keeping his tone neutral though he disliked the implication of being ranked and classified. "The Galactic Council classifies all species according to their technological development and cultural maturity," Krell explained. "The Vexari are Category 1, of course. Category 7 is usually reserved for species who have just discovered interplanetary travel, but we're making an exception due to your unusually rapid development." 2 hours later, the Vexari delegation toured Earth's orbital station. Earth's political and military leaders had rushed to organize a diplomatic reception. Captain Kim stood by the observation window, watching Earth rotate below while the aliens examined displays of human technology with barely concealed dismissal. Science Director Lee approached him, a glass of water in her hand. She was a small woman with intense eyes and Earth's foremost expert on propulsion systems. "They think we're children," she whispered, her voice tight with frustration. Kim nodded slightly. "Let them. Did you see how they laughed at our fusion engines? That ambassador called them quaint firecracker technology." "Good," Kim replied, his voice low. "The less they think of us, the better." Lee glanced around to ensure no aliens were within earshot. "Director Choi sent me a message. The Supernova team is concerned about security now that these aliens have arrived." Kim's eyes remained on the blue planet below. "Tell Choi to continue the work as planned. What the Vexari don't know won't hurt them. But their scanning technology is clearly advanced. What if they detect the research facilities? Every supernova site is protected by our best countermeasures and buried deep where conventional scans can't reach. Besides, they clearly don't consider us a threat." Kim nodded toward a Vexari official who was chuckling at Earth's satellite communication display. "And if they find out," Lee pressed, "if they discover what we're really capable of?" Kim's eyes hardened as he turned to face her. then it might hurt them very much indeed. The next day, Kim sat in a secured underground conference room with Earth's Defense Council. The wall screens displayed images of the Vexari ship and translated portions of the information packet they had provided about the Galactic Council. General Wu, head of the Defense Forces, looked grim. "They've placed restrictions on our development of new propulsion and weapons technology. According to these regulations, we're forbidden from expanding beyond our solar system without Council approval. They want to keep us contained," said Defense Minister Back. "This Category 7 status is just a fancy cage." President Kang leaned forward. "What about the Supernova project? Can we continue?" Director Choi, head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Research, spoke carefully. "If the Vexari discover the true purpose of Supernova, they would consider it a direct violation of their technology restrictions. However, our facilities remain undetected so far." "Their scans seem focused on conventional energy signatures," Kim added. "The quantum shielding on the Supernova sites appears to be working." The president nodded. "Then we continue as planned, but with extreme caution. We will play the role of the humble newcomers while accelerating the Supernova timetable. The original 10-year development plan may be too slow," Choi said. "If the Vexari intend to restrict our growth, we should aim for completion within 5 years." Kim thought of the condescension in Ambassador Krell's voice. "The Vexari believe we're primitive because they're measuring us against their own timeline. They evolved slowly, developed technology gradually over thousands of years. They can't imagine that we might advance at a different rate. Their arrogance will be their weakness," Lee said. "While they're busy patting us on the head, we'll be building the most advanced fleet in the galaxy." As the meeting ended, Kim received a private message from Orbital Command. The Vexari ship was preparing to depart, but Ambassador Krell had announced that a permanent delegation would arrive within 6 months to establish formal relations and guide humanity's integration into galactic society. Looking at his colleagues, Kim felt a mixture of determination and concern. Earth had only a small window of opportunity before the watchful eyes of the galaxy turned their full attention to humanity. They would need to use that time wisely. And when the time came to reveal the Supernova fleet, the Vexari would learn that humans did not appreciate being categorized, restricted, or underestimated. 10 years passed quickly since first contact with the Vexari. Humanity built their first colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan. They established mining operations throughout the asteroid belt and pushed out to the distant Kuiper belt. But they never moved without Vexari observers watching and judging their every action. Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of Earth's newest vessel, the EDS Dauntless. His uniform was crisp, decorated with medals from his years of service. Behind his calm face, he felt a familiar anger building. The Vexari inspector moved around the bridge, touching the equipment with 3-fingered hands and making disapproving clicks with his mandibles. "Primitive propulsion systems," the inspector noted, his 6 eyes blinking in sequence. "Still using fusion drives. Most species develop quantum fold technology before leaving their home systems." Commander Song stood at Kim's side, her hands clenched into fists. She had helped design the Dauntless's weapon systems, spending 3 years making them appear less advanced than they actually were. "Your weapon systems are particularly inefficient," the inspector continued, mandibles clicking in what humans had learned was the Vexari expression of amusement. "These plasma cannons would barely damage a Category 5 vessel, let alone anything more advanced. How do you humans expect to defend yourselves with such cargo ships?" Kim saw Song's jaw clench tight, but she remained silent as instructed. "Good. The Vexari must never suspect. We manage with what we have," Kim replied evenly. "Earth is still learning its place in the galactic community." The inspector made a dismissive gesture. "Indeed, 10 years and still Category 7. Most species advance at least 1 level in their first decade of contact." He tapped his datapad. "Inspection complete. You may continue your test flight. But remember, no ventures beyond Saturn without prior approval." After the inspector left, Song finally spoke. 10 years of this. 10 years of being treated like children. Kim watched the Vexari shuttle depart through the view screen. Patience, Commander. Our time is coming. 1 week later, Earth received devastating news. The Galactic Council had ruled that the resource-rich Kuiper Belt territories that Earth had been developing must be ceded to the Krell Dominion, a vassal species of the Vexari. President Han stood before the emergency session of Earth's united government, her face tight with barely controlled fury. Representatives from every nation and colony filled the Grand Hall in Geneva. "This is an outrage," President Han declared, bringing her fist down on the podium. "We've invested years in those mining operations. They contain resources critical to our expansion plans." The Vexari representative, Ambassador Lox, spread his silver hands in a gesture of false sympathy. "The Council's decision is final. The Krell Dominion has legitimate claim to these territories." "Legitimate?" Defense Minister Back shouted. "We discovered those resources. We built the infrastructure." "The Krell have Category 3 status," Lox replied, his tone condescending, as if explaining to a small child. "You are merely Category 7. The hierarchy must be respected. Higher categories have priority in resource disputes." Kim sat in the third row, watching the diplomatic disaster unfold. The Krell were a warlike species who served as enforcers for the Vexari throughout the sector. Giving them control of the Kuiper Belt would place them dangerously close to Earth's outer colonies. "Request denied," Lox concluded. "You have 30 Earth days to evacuate all personnel and equipment from the disputed territories." That night, Admiral Kim attended an emergency meeting deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. 500 meters below the surface, inside a research facility disguised as a deep-sea mining operation, Earth's true leaders gathered around a circular table. "We cannot let this stand," President Han said. "The Kuiper Belt contains 60% of our antimatter production facilities." Director Choi, now gray-haired but still sharp-eyed, brought up a holographic display. "We knew this day might come. Supernova is ready." "After 10 years?" General Wu asked, leaning forward. "The original timetable was 5. We expanded the project," Choi explained. "What began as 50 ships became 200. Our original weapon designs proved too easy to detect, so we developed new ones. The extra time has been well spent." Kim studied the hologram showing secret shipyards hidden throughout the solar system. Some were buried in asteroids, others concealed beneath the ice of various moons. The largest was here, beneath the Pacific, where Earth's greatest warship waited. "The Phoenix is complete?" Kim asked. "Finished 3 months ago," Choi confirmed, along with the other capital ships. "The fleet is at 98% readiness." President Han looked around the table. "We've maintained this deception for a decade. We've endured their condescension and their restrictions. We've built industries and technologies they believe impossible for us. The question is, are we ready to reveal ourselves?" Science Director Lee, now head of Earth's Research Division, spoke up. "The Krell will not be satisfied with the Kuiper Belt. Give them that territory, and they'll push for more. They've done the same to 3 other species. And what happens to those species?" asked Minister Back. "They're eventually downgraded to Category 8 or 9, Lee replied. "Essentially enslaved." Silence fell over the room. Kim thought of the years of hiding their true capabilities, of building fake ships while the real fleet grew in secret. He thought of Commander Song's face as the Vexari inspector mocked her work. "If we reveal Supernova now," General Wu warned, "we risk the combined response of the Galactic Council. Are we prepared for that?" "We won't have to fight the entire Council," Kim said. "Just the Krell, and by extension, the Vexari. The other species have their own grievances with the hierarchy. Some may even support us." President Han nodded slowly. "We'll begin moving key personnel and families from the outer colonies. Quietly. We won't reveal Supernova yet, but we'll prepare for the possibility." Director Choi activated his secure terminal with a palm scan. The screen glowed blue, recognizing his biometric signature. "Authorization. Supernova," he said clearly. "Begin final assembly phase." Across the solar system, hidden shipyards hummed to life. In the shadows of asteroids, beneath the ice of distant moons, and in the darkness of Earth's oceans, the true might of humanity stirred from its long sleep. On Mars, Commander Song received an encrypted message that made her smile for the first time in weeks. In 30 days, the Krell would come to claim what they believed was theirs. They would expect to find a weak species retreating in submission. They would find something else entirely. The emergency alert blared through Earth Command Center. Buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, red lights flashed as officers rushed to their stations. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Research Station Horizon. We are under attack by Krell warships." The voice was filled with panic, and the sound of explosions echoed in the background. General Yoon stood at the central command table, her face illuminated by the holographic display showing the situation near Pluto. Research Station Horizon floated in space, surrounded by 7 Krell warships. The station's outer defenses were already failing. "They didn't even declare their intentions," Colonel Ba said, his voice tight. "They just opened fire." General Yoon's eyes narrowed. "The 30-day evacuation period hasn't even ended. This is a deliberate provocation." On the display, tiny dots of light showed Horizon's defensive drones being systematically destroyed. The Krell ships moved with practiced precision, their energy weapons cutting through the station's outer shields. 276 civilians on that station, said Admiral Park, who had just entered the command center. Scientists and their families. President Han's voice came through on the secure channel. "General Yoon, what are your recommendations?" Yoon studied the tactical display for 3 seconds. "Deploy the defense fleet." The order went out immediately. Earth's known ships, the ones the Vexari had cataloged, inspected and dismissed, powered up their engines, and moved toward the outer solar system. The EDS Dauntless led the formation, along with the Intrepid, Valiant, and 5 other vessels. "Inform the Galactic Council of the Krell aggression," President Han ordered from her secure bunker. "Request immediate intervention." The diplomatic channels remained silent. Admiral Kim, watching from the lunar base, wasn't surprised. "They won't respond," he told his staff. This attack was likely approved by the Vexari. Back in Earth Command, General Yoon watched the holographic display with growing concern. The Krell forces had expected Earth's defensive response and were prepared. Their ships were faster, more heavily armed, and protected by shield technology far superior to what Earth officially possessed. "Intrepid is taking heavy damage," reported Colonel Ba. "Their engines are failing." On the display, the Intrepid's icon flashed red. The ship had moved to protect the civilian escape pods launching from Horizon Station. "Valiant moving to assist," came Captain Min's voice. The Valiant turned sharply, placing itself between the Krell ships and the Intrepid. 3 Krell vessels focused their fire on the Valiant. Its shields failed within moments. The hull breached in multiple locations. Emergency signals flashed and then went silent. "We've lost the Valiant," Colonel Bay reported, his voice hollow. "All hands." The room fell silent except for the continuing alerts and communications. The Intrepid's icon disappeared from the display 30 seconds later. "Horizon's defenses are failing," someone reported. "The Krell are boarding the station." General Yoon straightened her uniform and walked to the central console. The biometric scanner glowed blue, waiting for authorization. "General," Colonel Bai asked, uncertain. Yoon took a deep breath and pressed her palm firmly against the scanner. "Authorization. Supernova Protocol Alpha." Across the war room, eyes widened. Officers turned to stare at the general. Everyone knew what those words meant. President Han herself appeared on the main screen, her face solemn. "Are we ready, General?" "We've been ready for 7 years, Madam President." President Han nodded once. "Execute Supernova." Throughout the solar system, what had appeared to be asteroids, abandoned mining facilities, and ocean research platforms suddenly transformed. Hidden bay doors opened on Europa's icy surface. A seemingly derelict space station near Venus split apart to reveal a fully armed warship. 3 asteroids in the belt cracked open like eggs, spilling out sleek vessels unlike anything Earth had publicly developed. In Earth's oceans, massive structures rose from the deep, water cascading off hulls that had never seen sunlight. On the far side of the moon, hidden hangar doors slid open for the first time. In orbit around Saturn, disguised as a small research outpost, the Phoenix awakened. At nearly 2 kilometers long, it was the largest warship ever built by human hands. Its hull was black as space itself, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Captain Ryu sat in the command chair, watching as systems came online around him. "Quantum drives at full capacity," reported Commander Song, who had transferred from the Dauntless 6 months earlier. "Weapon systems green across all boards." Captain Ryu nodded and activated the quantum communications array that linked all Supernova vessels simultaneously, regardless of distance. "This is Captain Ryu of the Earth Supernova Fleet. All units deploy." Across the solar system, 217 warships revealed themselves and moved with startling speed toward Pluto. At Earth Command, General Yoon watched the tactical display transform. Blue icons appeared everywhere, converging on the Krell position. "My God," whispered Colonel Ba. "There are so many." In his flagship, the Krell commander Vrax was celebrating his easy victory when his tactical officer screamed. Unknown vessels appearing throughout the system. Hundreds of them. They're everywhere. Vrax rushed to the sensor display. "Impossible. The humans only have 12 registered warships. We've destroyed 2. "These aren't registered ships," the tactical officer said, his voice shaking. "These are something else." The Phoenix emerged from its hiding place, accelerating at speeds the Krell had thought impossible for human technology. Its massive form dwarfed even the largest Krell vessel. On the bridge, Captain Ryu studied the tactical display. "Target Krell command ship. Prepare the solar lance." "Solar lance charged and ready," Commander Song reported. "Fire." The weapon that fired from the Phoenix was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. A controlled fusion reaction, essentially a miniature star, streaked across space and engulfed the Krell vessel. The ship's shields flared brilliant blue for 2 seconds before collapsing completely. The hull melted like wax under a blowtorch. The remaining Krell ships began to turn, attempting to retreat or regroup. "Too late," General Yoon said, watching from Earth Command. "It's far too late." The Phoenix executed a maneuver that defied known physics, jumping instantaneously to a new position without using traditional FTL drives. It appeared directly in the path of the retreating Krell ships. "All vessels, this is Captain Ryu. Deploy gravity nets and prepare to capture enemy ships. We want prisoners for interrogation." The battle was over in less than 15 minutes. 6 Krell ships destroyed, 1 captured intact. Research Station Horizon damaged but saved, along with most of its personnel. On the Vexari homeworld, the High Council received the report with stunned silence. "Impossible," whispered the High Counselor. "Category 7 species do not possess such technology." Admiral Kim's message arrived moments later, broadcast on all Galactic Council frequencies. "The human race will no longer accept your categories or your restrictions. We have reclaimed our territory in the Kuiper Belt. Any further aggression will be met with the full force of the Supernova fleet." Commander Vrax stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominant Fang. His scaled skin gleamed under the ship's lights as he watched the humans' pathetic research station burn. 6 of his warships surrounded the station, methodically destroying its defenses. "Send in the boarding parties," Vrax ordered, mandibles clicking with pleasure. "I want the human scientists taken alive. Their knowledge may be primitive, but could prove useful." His second-in-command bowed. "The human defense fleet approaches. Commander, 8 vessels." Vrax laughed, a harsh sound like stones grinding together. Let them come. Their ships are cargo vessels with weapons attached as afterthoughts. The tactical display showed the human ships approaching. They were slow, their formation simple and predictable. The Krell had studied human battle tactics for years. There would be no surprises today. Fire when they enter optimal range, Vrax said casually. I'll inform the Vexari High Council of our victory once we've captured the station. 2 human ships were already destroyed. The others struggled to defend themselves, their weapons barely scratching the Krell shields. Vrax poured himself a celebration drink, a thick purple liquid that steamed in its container. Too easy, he said to his officers. The Vexari were right. These humans err. His tactical officer suddenly screamed, jumping up from his station. Unknown vessels appearing throughout the battlefield. They're everywhere. Vrax spilled his drink as he rushed to the tactical display. What he saw made no sense. Hundreds of new contacts were appearing throughout the solar system, all converging on his position. Impossible, he whispered. Where did they come from? Scan them. Scans aren't working, his officer replied, voice shaking. Something's blocking our sensors. But they're big, Commander. Much bigger than anything the humans should have. The Phoenix emerged from what appeared to be a folded pocket of space-time, a vessel 3 times larger than anything humans were thought capable of building. Its hull was midnight black, gleaming with a material that absorbed sensor scans rather than reflecting them. Ambassador Krell watched from the Vexari observation post near Neptune. The Vexari had placed their observation platforms throughout the human solar system years ago, monitoring all human activities. Or so they had thought. What am I seeing? Krell demanded of his science officer. Where did that vessel come from? Unknown, Ambassador. Our sensors didn't detect it until it appeared. It's using some kind of dimensional folding technology that should be impossible for Category 7 species. On the Phoenix's bridge, Captain Ryu sat calmly in the command chair. The ship had been his home for 5 years, hidden in the shadow of Saturn while he trained his crew for this moment. All weapons systems online, reported Commander Song from the tactical station. Solar lance at full charge. Ryu studied the display showing the Krell ships surrounding the human research station. Target Krell command ship, he ordered. Activate solar lance. Song's fingers danced across her console. Solar lance activated. Targeting Krell flagship. The weapon that fired from the Phoenix's bow was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. A controlled fusion reaction, essentially a miniature star, streaked across space and engulfed the Krell vessel. For a moment, the dominant Fang was surrounded by what looked like a small sun. When the light faded, the ship's shields were gone, and its hull was melting like ice under a blowtorch. From the Vexari observation post, Ambassador Krell watched in horror. Impossible. Their technology is Category 1 or higher. They've created a directed fusion weapon. The Phoenix executed a maneuver that defied known physics, jumping instantaneously to a new position without traditional FTL signatures. It simply disappeared and reappeared behind the Krell formation. Quantum displacement drive functioning perfectly, reported the Phoenix's navigation officer. We can make another jump in 30 seconds. More human ships emerged from hiding throughout the solar system. Some appeared from behind moons, others from what looked like ordinary asteroids. A particularly large vessel rose from beneath the icy surface of Europa. Each ship demonstrated capabilities that shattered Vexari assumptions about human technology. Their weapons cut through Krell shields like they weren't there. Their propulsion systems allowed maneuvers that the Krell could not match. On the dominant Fang, Commander Vrax was shouting orders, trying to reorganize his scattered fleet. Fall back. Regroup at coordinates. The ship shuddered as another attack struck it. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Hull breach on decks 3 through 7. Shouted an officer. Weapons offline. Engines failing. Vrax stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 3 of his ships were already destroyed. 2 more were heavily damaged. And more human vessels kept appearing. Retreat, he ordered. All ships, retreat immediately. But there was nowhere to run. Human ships surrounded them, cutting off all escape routes. Within minutes, the remaining Krell vessels were either destroyed or disabled. In Earth Command, General Yun watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Order the Phoenix to secure the research station and rescue survivors. Yes, General, Colonel Bai responded. The Krell flagship is disabled but intact. Captain Ryu requests permission to board and capture Commander Vrax. Granted, said Yun. I want him brought to Earth for questioning. Within hours, the Krell fleet was in ruins, and the Supernova fleet formed a protective barrier around Earth's territories. Ships took up positions near every human colony and outpost from Mercury to the Kuiper belt. In the Vexari High Council chamber, emergency alarms sounded as reports flooded in from their observation posts throughout human space. Impossible, said High Counselor Mev, staring at the images of the Phoenix and other human vessels. They've hidden an entire fleet from us. Technology that should be centuries beyond their capability. The fusion-based weapons alone would qualify them for at least Category 3, said another counselor. The dimensional displacement drive is Category 1 technology. How did they develop these in secret? Ambassador Trell's holographic image appeared before the council. High Counselor, the human fleet is securing all their territories, including the disputed Kuiper Belt region. They've captured Commander Vrax and destroyed or disabled all Krell forces. High Counselor Mev's 6 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress. Send an immediate transmission to their leadership. We demand explanations for this deception and these unauthorized weapons. The Vexari message was broadcast throughout the solar system. This is the Vexari High Council to Earth leadership. We demand explanations. These weapons violate Council protocols. Your technology classification must be immediately reviewed, and all unauthorized vessels surrendered to Council authority. General Yun received the message in Earth Command. President Han stood beside her, watching the angry Vexari counselor on the screen. Shall I prepare a detailed response, Madam President? Yun asked. President Han shook her head. Keep it simple, General. They've underestimated us long enough. General Yun nodded and activated the transmission. Her reply was direct and to the point. Perhaps you should have asked what we were capable of before you decided what we were worth. As the message was sent, the Phoenix moved into position above the Vexari observation post near Neptune. Its solar lance remained charged, a clear warning that the balance of power in this region of space had permanently changed. The emergency session of the Galactic Council began in chaos. The great circular chamber on the Vexari homeworld had hosted orderly meetings for 12,000 years. Today it echoed with angry shouts and frightened whispers. Species from across the galaxy filled the tiered seats. Many were seeing humans for the first time. They stared at President Han and her delegation as they entered the chamber. Admiral Kim walked behind her, along with General Yun and Captain Ryu. The humans wore simple blue uniforms without decoration. Order. We will have order. High Counselor Mev shouted, his 6 eyes blinking rapidly. The chamber slowly quieted. We are here to address the shocking revelations about human technological development and their unauthorized military actions. Mev continued. The humans have hidden an advanced fleet from Council inspection and used illegal weapons against Krell forces. A Krell representative rose from his seat. They destroyed 6 of our warships. Commander Vrax remains their prisoner. We demand justice. President Han stepped forward to the central speaking platform. She was a small woman, but her voice carried clearly through the chamber. Justice, she asked. Was it justice when you attacked our research station without warning? When you killed our scientists and their families? The Krell representative hissed, but sat down when the High Counselor raised a hand for silence. President Han, Mev said, your species was classified as Category 7. The development and possession of quantum displacement drives and fusion-based weapons is forbidden to species below Category 2. You have violated the most basic rules of the Council. Han looked around the chamber slowly before speaking. For 10 years, we accepted your restrictions while developing in secret. You called our ships cargo vessels with pop guns, while we built a fleet that could challenge the foundations of your power. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Many species had suffered under similar restrictions for centuries. Admiral Kim stepped forward. The Supernova fleet was named not just for our fusion-based weapons, but for our intention to explode onto the galactic stage when the time was right. You deceived us, accused a Vexari council member. We protected ourselves, Kim replied. While your inspectors mocked our technology, we studied your weaknesses. While you restricted our growth, we prepared for the day when those restrictions would be used against us. The Vexari representatives huddled together, their silver faces showing expressions humans had learned to recognize as uncertainty and fear. High Counselor Mev's voice shook slightly. What do you want? Why have you agreed to this meeting? We do not wish for war, President Han said. Despite your treatment of us, humans prefer peace when possible. General Yoon stepped forward with a datapad. We have documented 17 cases in the last 1,000 years where the Vexari and Krell have used technology restrictions to weaken species before eventually reducing them to servant status. The chamber erupted again. Several species in the middle tiers stood and shouted confirmation of the human claims. The Zell were Category 4 before you forced us down to Category 8. The Prani lost their home system after similar restrictions. President Han raised her hands for quiet. We propose a new arrangement. Earth will maintain its independence and the right to defend its interests. In return, we offer our technology to those species who wish to form mutual defense pacts. High Counselor Mev's eyes widened. You cannot. Technology sharing between categories is forbidden. Categories are your creation, Captain Ryu said, speaking for the first time. Humans reject this system. If you reject the Council's authority, you stand alone against the galaxy, threatened a Krell representative. Admiral Kim smiled for the first time. Look around this chamber. Do we stand alone? Throughout the room, representatives from dozens of species were standing. The Prani, the Zell, the Tolari, the Nuum, all races that had suffered under Vexari restrictions. The time for change has come, President Han said. We do not seek to destroy the Council, but to transform it. Equal representation, technology sharing, an end to the category system. High Counselor Mev looked around the chamber, seeing thousands of years of Vexari dominance crumbling before his eyes. This is unprecedented. Progress often is, Han replied. 3 days later, the first alliance treaties were signed in Earth's orbital diplomatic station. The Prani, an insectoid species who had once possessed a thriving civilization before Vexari intervention, were the first to sign. Our scientists have already begun studying your quantum displacement technology, the Prani ambassador told Admiral Kim. Within a year, we will build our own ships. Kim nodded. And we look forward to learning about your biological computing systems. Similar meetings took place throughout the station. Species that had been kept apart by the category system now freely shared knowledge and formed new bonds. The Vexari delegation watched from their assigned quarters, their once powerful position now greatly diminished. How did we not see this coming? One Vexari diplomat asked Ambassador Trell. We saw what we expected to see, Trell replied. We believed humans would develop as other species had, slowly, predictably. We'd never considered they might advance in secret. On the Phoenix, Captain Ryu hosted representatives from 7 species for a tour of Earth's flagship. They moved through the massive vessel in wonder. Your solar lance technology combined with our shield harmonics could revolutionize space travel safety, said the Tolari scientist. And your medical technology could help cure diseases that have plagued Earth for centuries, Ryu replied. The new alliances spread quickly. Within weeks, 37 species had signed treaties with Earth. The galactic hierarchy, stable for thousands of years, continued to crumble as more races rejected the category system. Not all transitions were peaceful. The Krell, losing their privileged position, attempted military action against several former subject worlds. The combined forces of Earth and their new allies quickly contained these conflicts. 3 months after the emergency session, the Council voted to abolish the category system entirely. High Counselor Mev resigned, replaced by a rotating leadership position shared among all member species. In the great archives of the Vexari homeworld, historian Jin worked late into the night. His job was to document all significant events in galactic history. Tonight, he made his final entry on what future generations would call the human revelation. His 6-fingered hands moved gracefully over the crystal recording device as he spoke. We categorized them by our standards, limited them by our rules, and judged them by their compliance. Their greatest deception was allowing us to believe they accepted our vision of their place in the cosmos. We invited them to the table as guests, never realizing they would one day sit at its head. Jin paused, then added one final line. Perhaps the true measure of an advanced species is not their technology, but their patience, adaptability, and determination. By this standard, humans may be the most advanced species the galaxy has ever known. On Earth, President Han stood at her office window, looking up at the night sky. New ships were launching daily now, carrying human scientists and diplomats to worlds they had only dreamed of visiting. Admiral Kim joined her, offering a cup of tea. Was it worth it? Han asked. 10 years of hiding. 10 years of pretending to be less than we were. Kim sipped his tea thoughtfully. Look up there, he said, pointing to a bright flash as a ship engaged its quantum drive. Our children will grow up in a galaxy without categories, without artificial limitations. That's worth any price. President Han nodded, raising her cup in a small toast to the stars above. To the Supernova fleet, she said, and to all those who kept the secret, and to those who didn't live to see it revealed, Kim added quietly. They stood in silence, watching the night sky fill with the lights of ships coming and going freely, the first moments of a new galactic order. The end.